On March 9, 2025, a 2018 Toyota RAV4 Hybrid rolled into my shop with 94,000 miles on the odometer, and an owner who was absolutely certain his hybrid battery was dying. He had a quote in his hand for $4,200 from the dealer. He had already accepted it in his mind. He just wanted a second opinion before he signed the paperwork. He told me his fuel economy had quietly dropped from 38 miles per gallon down to 29 over the last 18 months. The engine kicked on sooner than it used to. The car felt heavier on acceleration. 3 different shops had told him the same thing: hybrid battery degradation, time to replace. Today, I am revealing the one-button Toyota hybrid owners press almost every single day, completely convinced it is saving them money, while it is silently destroying the most expensive component in the entire vehicle. I have seen this scenario unfold so many times in the last 3 years that I can predict the conversation before it starts. A hybrid owner walks in, fuel economy has dropped, the gas engine runs more aggressively, the car feels different, and the assumption is always the same. The battery must be going bad. Hybrids do not last forever, right? That is what they have read online. That is what they have been told by friends. That is what the dealer confirmed in writing. But here is what I asked this owner before I even opened the hood. I asked him a simple question. Do you press the EV mode button when you start the car in the morning? He looked at me like I had read his mind. Every single day, he said. I thought I was saving gas. That single answer told me everything I needed to know. Because in the vast majority of cases I have personally inspected, the Toyota hybrid battery is not failing from age, defect, or manufacturing flaw. It is failing because the owner has been quietly abusing it for years without realizing it. And the abuse comes from a button most drivers genuinely believe is doing the opposite of what it actually does. Toyota's EV mode button is one of the most misunderstood features in modern automotive history. It sits on the dashboard, small and inviting, with 2 letters that imply something powerful. Press this and your car becomes electric. Press this and you stop burning gasoline. Press this and you save money. So drivers press it every morning. They press it in parking lots. They press it on every short trip to the grocery store. They press it when leaving their driveway. Every time they press it, they believe they are doing something smart, something economical, something that extends the life of their vehicle. The reality is almost the exact opposite. What that button actually does is force the hybrid battery into a usage pattern Toyota's engineers designed it to avoid whenever possible. It deliberately pushes the high-voltage battery beyond the safe state of charge window that protects long-term battery health, and it does so dozens or hundreds of times per year in the hands of an owner who has no idea this is happening. To understand why this matters, you have to understand something most hybrid owners were never told when they bought the car. The hybrid battery in your Toyota is never allowed to fully charge, and it is never allowed to fully discharge. The battery management system inside the car deliberately keeps the high-voltage battery operating within a narrow middle band, typically somewhere between 40% and 80% state of charge, depending on the model. This narrow window is not a limitation. It is the single most important reason these hybrid batteries can last 200,000, 300,000, sometimes 400,000 miles in the real world. Lithium-ion and nickel metal hydride batteries both share the same fundamental vulnerability. The closer you push them to either extreme, full charge, or empty, the faster they degrade. Every deep discharge cycle removes a small amount of usable capacity. Every full charge cycle does the same. Manufacturers learned this lesson decades ago with laptops and phones, but most consumers never realized it applied to their car. Toyota engineered the entire hybrid system around protecting that middle band. The car charges the battery when conditions are favorable. It discharges it when load is light. It blends gasoline and electric power constantly to keep the battery in its sweet spot. You do not have to think about any of it, because the system is making thousands of calculations per second to protect the battery from itself. But the moment you press that EV mode button, you override the safety strategy. You are telling the car that you want pure electric drive regardless of what the battery management system thinks is healthy. The car obeys. It pulls power exclusively from the high-voltage battery, draining it rapidly, because hybrid batteries are not designed for long electric driving. They are small, about 1.6 kilowatt-hours in most Toyota hybrids, compared to 60 or 80 kilowatt-hours in a true electric vehicle. That tiny pack drains fast. As it drains, you push the battery toward the lower edge of the safe window, sometimes well past it. When the battery hits a low enough state of charge, the system has no choice. It starts the gasoline engine aggressively. Here is the part nobody talks about. That engine is not running to drive the car forward. It is running primarily to recharge the depleted battery as fast as possible, because the system recognizes the battery is too low for safe operation. So the engine runs harder, hotter, and longer than it ever would have under normal hybrid logic. Fuel economy drops in that moment, but the long-term damage is far worse. Every time you push the battery toward the lower edge of its safe window, you are stressing the cells in a way they were never designed for in routine operation. Repeat that behavior twice a day for 3 years, and you have inflicted thousands of deep partial discharge cycles on a battery pack that Toyota intended to live in a narrow, comfortable band for its entire life. The damage shows up exactly the way that RAV4 owner described it to me. Fuel economy slowly drifts down because the battery's effective capacity has shrunk. The engine runs more often because there is less usable battery to draw from. The car feels heavier because more of the workload has shifted to the gasoline side. At some point, a trouble code finally appears, or a hybrid system warning shows up, and a dealer tells you that you need a new battery for several $1,000s. The truth is, the battery did not fail from age. It failed from a usage pattern that was avoidable from day one if anyone had ever explained what that EV button actually does. This is the part that frustrates me the most as someone who has been inside hundreds of these systems. Toyota's hybrid technology is genuinely extraordinary. These vehicles are built to last absurdly long when they are operated the way the engineers intended. I have personally inspected Prius and Camry hybrids with more than 300,000 miles, whose original batteries still tested within healthy parameters because the owners never interfered with the system. They drove the car, they let it do its job. They did not push buttons trying to outsmart the engineers who spent decades refining the most efficient hybrid system on the planet. Meanwhile, I have seen hybrids with 90,000 miles whose batteries are functionally exhausted because the owners pressed EV mode every single morning, believing it was the responsible thing to do. The cruelest part of this whole situation is that EV mode does almost nothing useful, even when used correctly. The button is designed for very specific, narrow scenarios. Toyota intended it for situations like creeping out of a quiet neighborhood early in the morning without waking the neighbors, or moving the car short distances inside a garage, or navigating slowly through a parking structure where engine noise is undesirable. The button is essentially a courtesy feature. It is not a fuel-saving feature, it is not a long trip feature, it is not a daily driver feature, and critically, it only works under very limited conditions. The speed must be low, generally under 25 miles per hour. The battery state of charge must be high enough. The climate control demand must be modest. The accelerator input must be light. If any of those conditions fail, the gas engine kicks on anyway, which means the driver pressing the button gains nothing while still triggering the deeper discharge pattern that hurts the battery over time. Think about what is actually happening from the battery's perspective every time that button is pressed. Under normal hybrid operation, the car uses electric power smoothly in small bursts, returning energy through regenerative braking, blending in gasoline when needed, and keeping the state of charge stable in the middle of its safe band. The battery experiences shallow cycles, which is what battery chemistry actually loves. Shallow cycles are how you reach 300,000 miles. Electric vehicle mode replaces that pattern with something completely different. It forces a deeper draw, then a hard recharge, then back to deep draw. The cells experience temperature swings as current loads change. Heat is the silent enemy of every battery ever made. The hybrid battery has cooling, but that cooling is designed for normal operating loads, not for repeated stress cycles caused by an override the engineers reluctantly included. Now, I want to be fair here. Toyota did not put a destructive button on the dashboard out of negligence. Electric vehicle mode exists for legitimate purposes, and used occasionally, it causes no meaningful harm. The problem is not the button. The problem is the assumptions drivers make about what it does. Nowhere in the marketing material, nowhere in the dealership conversation, and rarely in the owner's manual is it clearly explained that this feature is not for daily use. So drivers assume the opposite. They assume more electric vehicle driving equals more savings. They assume more electric driving equals less wear. They assume Toyota would not put a button there if it was not meant to be used regularly. All of those assumptions feel logical, and all of them are wrong. The fix is almost embarrassingly simple. Stop pressing the button. Let the car make its own decisions. Toyota's hybrid synergy drive has been refined over more than 2 decades of engineering. It already knows when to use the battery. It already knows when to use the engine. It already knows when to charge and when to discharge. You do not need to help it. In fact, you need to get out of its way. If you have been pressing EV mode regularly and your fuel economy has dropped, the first thing you should do is stop. Drive the car normally for a few thousand miles. Let the battery management system stabilize the state of charge within its safe window. Many owners report meaningful fuel economy recovery within a few tanks just from this single change. The battery will not magically heal damaged cells, but the system will stop being forced into stress patterns and remaining capacity will be utilized more efficiently. There is one more piece of this puzzle that I want you to understand because it ties everything together. Hybrid batteries do not usually fail all at once. They degrade gradually, cell by cell, like a slow leak you cannot see. By the time the dashboard finally warns you, the damage has been accumulating for years. This is why owners are so often blindsided when the failure code finally appears. They were never told what to look for, and they were never told what behaviors were silently accelerating the decline. The drop in fuel economy was the warning. The increased engine activity was the warning. The slightly heavier feel during acceleration was the warning. All of those symptoms appear long before any official code, and all of them point back to the same root cause in a huge percentage of cases, which is a battery being pushed outside its safe operating window too often for too long. That RAV4 owner left my shop that afternoon without spending $4,200. We tested the battery cells. We found measurable degradation, but nothing catastrophic. I explained the electric vehicle mode issue. He sat in his car for a moment and said something I will never forget. He said he had been pressing that button every morning since the day he bought it because he genuinely believed he was being a responsible owner. Nobody had ever told him otherwise. Not the salesperson, not the service advisor, not the manual in any meaningful way. He had done damage he did not know he was doing because the information was never presented to him clearly. I see this every week. I will keep seeing it until enough drivers finally understand what is actually happening inside their hybrid systems. If you own a Toyota hybrid or any hybrid with an electric vehicle mode button, treat that button the way you would treat a parking brake on a manual transmission. Useful occasionally, necessary in specific situations, damaging if used as a daily habit. Your hybrid system was engineered by some of the most thoughtful powertrain engineers in the industry. Trust them. Drive the car. Let it do what it was built to do. Your battery will last longer. Your fuel economy will stay closer to factory specifications. Your gas engine will run less aggressively. And the day you eventually sell or trade in the vehicle, the value will hold because the most expensive component inside it will not have been quietly degraded by a button you thought was helping. If this changed how you think about your hybrid, hit the like button so more drivers see it before they spend thousands replacing a battery they damaged without realizing it. Subscribe for more breakdowns that put the truth back in your hands. And drop a comment if you have been pressing EV mode every morning. I want to know how many of you are about to change that habit tomorrow. The most expensive mistakes in modern vehicles are not the ones that break something instantly. They are the ones that quietly cost you for years until the bill finally arrives. Now you have the knowledge to make sure that bill never shows up.